Hey everybody, Faith Carroll here of Embodied Animism. I am an archetypal astrologer and animist spiritual counselor. And today's video, we're talking about Saturn and Pisces. Saturn entered Pisces on March 7th of 2023, and it is leaving Pisces on February 13th of 2026. So it's a pretty extensive time period. And for those of you who know my work, you know that mostly I don't focus on the planets and the signs. But when the planets are in a sign like this for such a long period of time, when the outer planets, anything Saturn out, Saturn to Pluto, it takes a long time. And there's this beautiful opportunity for us to consciously develop an awareness of of what's happening in the collective through Saturn or planet being in a sign, and also how it's affecting us. I'm all about supporting people to access their own embodied understanding of these transits, and so will have a link below to my other video, which is a meditation which supports you to understand exactly what Saturn and Pisces offers for you and what this process offers for you. Now, that being said, it can be really nice having someone just tell you what things mean. And there are so many beautiful, fabulous astrologers on the internet who talk about what Saturn and Pisces, holds for us over the next 3 years. And I encourage you to explore, see what they have to say. Every astrologer is speaking from their perspective, from their personal chart, and we all have something different to say. And I think that's pretty exciting and pretty gorgeous. So please don't just take my word for it. Excuse me. So the reason I'm doing this video now is Saturn is about to go into retrograde. And so it's a really beautiful time to begin to reflect on what it is you're wanting out of this 3-year period, what it is that what this time can be for you. Retrograde periods are, I like my favorite version. I don't even remember what astrologer said this, but it's my favorite understanding of a retrograde is that it means the planet, that God, has gone on vacation. And so the classic advice is, well, whatever that planet rules, just know that anything you do in that planet's domain during that time period, you're going to have to do again once the retrograde is over. Now, outer planets like Saturn are retrograde for sometimes up to 6 months a year. So I don't know if that's the best advice. I think it's great advice for the shorter retrogrades, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, but for the longer moving, the slower moving planets, the longer transits, I don't like thinking about it quite that way. I just like thinking about it more as an opportunity to reflect. So retrograde, anything that begins with an RE prefix, that's a great thing to do during a retrograde. So during this time, we're going to go more into what Saturn means and what Pisces means, but we're entering into a time to reflect on all that is in Saturn's domain. So Saturn, oh, gosh, I love Saturn so much. Saturn is just my favorite. And it's funny, Saturn is known as the greater malefic. He's the big bad guy of astrology. And I think that's only really true if you are participating in a culture that is sort of anti-life itself, which is definitely the culture I'm participating in. You might be coming to this video from a culture that isn't the United States, that isn't dominant Western culture. And so you might have a very different experience. Saturn might be interpreted differently in your culture. But in our culture, Saturn is the big bad guy because Saturn is the planet of reality and limits and boundaries. And in its shadow expression, Saturn is the planet that represents the structures of patriarchy, structures of oppression, control, criticism, all these kinds of things. But in its healthy expression, Saturn is the wise woman. Saturn is the crone. Saturn is the elder. Saturn is the wisdom holder. And right, we each have the invitation. We do not have free, excuse me. Cancel. We have free will. We have free will. We do not have destinies. We do not have fate. I mean, I really do believe that there are things in this lifetime that we are here to learn and experience, mostly experience, and grow into and find out about. But how we do it, how that actually phenomenologically expresses is totally up to us. So, right, we know that there are some elders who are indeed wisdom holders. I really learned this when I worked for several years at an assisted living. There are elders who are wisdom holders, and they tend to be very rare in our culture because we don't have initiation systems to support folks to go from being adults into being elders to being wisdom holders, which you don't have to be someone who is an elder, literally like over the age of 65 to be a wisdom holder, to be a community elder. You can be the cranky, right? That we have the image of like the cranky old man. Get off my lawn, kids. It's so Saturn that we can either go through life and we can get more bitter and more shut down and more closed off and more critical and judgmental and, drawing everything in binaries. And that's an expression of Saturn. Or we become more open, more kind, more gentle, more supportive and responsible for ourselves, and more in our integrity. And that is Saturn too. So whenever we are dealing with Saturn, we always want to think about these themes of boundaries, structures, limits, responsibility, these kinds of things. But we also want to think Saturn fundamentally represents, it's not what causes our suffering. Saturn represents our relationship to suffering. It represents our relationship to the incarnation experience, to what it is like to be born and be in this body, to do this physical thing and inhabit this world. And if you've been here for more than 2 minutes, you know that there is a lot of sadness, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of weight and heaviness. There's literally death. There's this thing where things end and then they don't come back. Saturn is that experience. It's not the only experience of death. There are also experiences of death where that is a transformation, which is Pluto, but we're focused on we're focused on Saturn right now. And that is the experience of death as like, it's an ending. There's something final about it. And gosh, if there's anything humans just hate, it's all that. And we love avoiding reality. And so we're like, Saturn's the big bad guy. Now, I say this I just survived. So Saturn being on my sun and my moon, the core parts of my psyche, the last few years, they were rough, let me tell you, but I am a more real version of myself. I know myself better. I'm more in my wholeness and my integrity. I have much better boundaries. I have much better support systems for myself. I've cleared away so many things that were not a match for me. Oh my God, I can't even tell you. And so the thing that I really know is that we can really trust the processes that we're in. We can trust our own processes, and Saturn represents one of those processes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Saturn and Pisces. So Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. It's the two fishes, and it is the moment where we remember. We start in Aries where we're like, me, I am. It's a fundamental experience of existence and of the self. We start pretty selfish, right? Babies, they care about one person. It's them. They care about their moms because their moms take care of them, right? They're not like, my gosh, mom, are you tired? Like, you should go lay down instead of feeding me right now. No, they just scream till you feed them. That's Aries. And to be clear, I'm not a sun sign astrologer. If your sun is in Aries, you're not just a screaming baby who cares only about themselves. My sun is in Leo. People say terrible things about me, and about us Leos. I really believe that our sun is in the sign. This is from Evolutionary Astrology by Stephen Forrest, that our sun is in the sign where that we are to develop the psychological process of. So if your sun is in Aries or your moon or whatever, you're to develop a brave self, to be yourself bravely, to explore courage, what it is to courageously express the self. Okay, so we start with Aries, we go through the whole zodiac, and we end with Pisces. Pisces. Pisces is the opposite experience. Maybe not the opposite experience, but it is the experience of, I am everything. I'm not just me. I am everything. It is an experience of the fundamental truths of consciousness. It is, I think some people would say it's like ascension, right? It's ascending to the oneness with all beings. I'm not super into ascension. And so I really think of Pisces more as like, this is the place where our heart opens, where we are able to realize the fundamental truths of that, of seeing through the illusions of our separateness, and knowing that our bodies, though we feel separate from everyone, are actually part of everything. We know this atomically. We know this like through quantum physics. We know this because every beautiful spiritual tradition ever tells us this. And Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Neptune is the planet of healing, imagination, fantasy, creativity, divine creativity, channeling, intuition. And Neptune is essentially that experience of being one with the mother, being one with God, being one with the divine, being one with nature, being one with the world. Reading a piece of literature and realizing I'm not the first person who has felt this way. Everyone has loved, everyone has lost. We are more similar than we are different. And so in Pisces is a psychological process. Neptune is a part of our psyche, the part of our psyche that is attuned to having those experiences of healing, of like just being one with everything, of connection, of beauty. And Pisces is the psychological process within us that facilitates sort of, that Neptunian goal. So you may have different planets. We all have different planets in Pisces, different positions. You may have no planets in Pisces. That's okay too. It's still a part of your psyche. And so it's the part of your psyche that is teaching you about consciousness itself. And it teaches you about consciousness itself through facilitating experiences of imagination and fantasy and awareness. So with Saturn in Pisces, I think the greatest gift of this placement is something like, I just had to shift something around. The incarnation being, Saturn makes real. So the being made real of our fantasies, the being made real of our dreams, the being made real of our consciousness, our awareness. And of course, with Saturn being the greater malefic, Saturn is always forcing us to deal with reality. So with Saturn in Pisces, we're going to be dealing with the reality of our delusions. The shadow of Pisces is alcoholism, addiction, escapism, just escaping into fantasy, escaping into art, escaping into drugs, escaping into stories, whatever it is. And now, right, Pisces is a healing sign, just like Neptune is a healing planet. There's nothing essentially categorically wrong with escaping. There's nothing essentially categorically wrong with fantasy. But we can overdo it. Definitely, it can be like that. And gathering my thoughts. So you might, over the next 3 years, find yourself having a confrontation with the places where you are addicted, where you are escaping your life. where you are deluding yourself. You're telling yourself things that aren't true. You're telling yourself, yes, things that aren't true. This can be the things you tell yourself. Oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, I'm terrible. Oh, this person who abuses me, this love is really good. This is the best love that I can get. Whatever it is, stuff about our culture, stuff, whatever it is, you might have a confrontation with your delusions, with your addictions. The other thing can happen too. If you probably will have a confrontation, if you choose to be like, no, I refuse to see that. I refuse to recognize that. There's a really good chance that after this transit ends, your patterns of escapism and addiction are going to become more entrenched, more solidified, and will be harder to release and in the future. And so if you are like, oh, I'm someone who definitely has addictions and fantasies, which is all of us, I encourage you to think about, during this coming Saturn retrograde or any of the Saturn retrogrades, I'm going to give those dates, to think about what it is you want to unravel in yourself. And you have 6 beautiful months to think about all that you want to unravel with the help of Saturn, what you want to clear, what you want to cut away, what you want to release in terms of your escapism, your addictions, your fantasies that aren't serving you, that aren't healing, that aren't supporting you, to be someone who is of use. When I say of use, I mean who is fully themselves. By of use, I don't mean like a capitalist sense of like producing. I mean like being fully you, whether that means you're in your room scribbling all day wildly on paper that you never share, or it means that you are participating in charity work or whatever that means. So you can be fully present as yourself so that you can be in your wholeness and in your basic fundamental sanity and your basic goodness. So so with this, the gift of Saturn and Pisces, right? Seeing through of illusions. Something that could also happen during this time, Pisces, similar to Neptune, dissolves. And so this might be a time where some of the boundaries over the next 3 years that you've created, that places you thought kept you safe, or you thought you had good boundaries, they might dissolve a little. This could express lots of different ways. If you've made boundaries with others, and depending on what planets you have in Pisces, those others might come, hello, you said you made a boundary, but like actually wasn't so good. Those boundaries might get fuzzy. You might come to the reality of realizing like, oh, I was pretending I'd made a boundary, but actually I've really left myself open to relationships with people who aren't, who don't treat me well, or whatever it is. So there can be this dissolving of boundaries. Now this can be a difficult thing, and so I'm bringing it to your awareness so that you can notice and work with it, but it can also be a gift, because often what happens is we build these protections around us, and maybe at the time they're really good, they're like really smart to do that, but Saturn just stays, and then it's 10 years later, 5 years later, 6 weeks later, and you don't need that anymore. You don't need that structure anymore. And it's actually keeping you small, because you're like banging against the walls of this structure, and it needs to come down so that you can be bigger. Pisces wants everyone to be huge, wants everyone to remember we are cosmic beings. And so there may be false security that you have been clinging to, and Pisces is going to freaking dissolve that. I'm going through that personally. I also have Neptune, who rules Pisces, on my natal Saturn right now. So I'm really going through that. It's super extra for me. And the thing I will say is you can trust that. Whenever Saturn and Neptune work together to dissolve and clear away things in your life, it's always because it's not actually really a match. So those are some of the expressions of Saturn and Pisces. Again, the gift is consciousness becoming incarnated, really developing structures of support for consciousness. Great things to do during this transit over the next 3 years is to begin to create what I call with Saturn devotional containers. So Saturn loves structure and loves when you follow through and are responsible in what you say. If you say like, I really want to heal, I really want to see through my bullshit, I really want to become more conscious, I really want to be a better artist, I really want to be a better friend, I really want to be able, I want to be more compassionate, or I want to be more I want to be, I feel like I'm empathetic, and actually it's just because of trauma and I need better boundaries. These are all great things to work with for Saturn in Pisces. And I lost my train of thought a little bit. No worries, we're just gonna keep flowing with it because it's Pisces. Yeah, who knows what I was saying? I could go back in this video and figure it out, but I'm not going to. I trust the Saturn Pisces process. So that brings me, we'll probably touch in a little bit more on what Saturn and Pisces means. Again, I encourage you to do the meditation that I'm offering. There's no one way to interpret this. Your experience of it is going to be totally your own. Some questions you can ask yourself that you can journal on, that you can, especially during the retrograde periods, think about these things. Again, I'm going to give you those dates. Is like, what structures aren't working in my life anymore that need to be cleared away? What illusions am I convincing myself of that I need to release? What boundaries do I need? Oh, I remember what I was saying. What boundaries do I need to create in terms of with my addictions and my escapist tendencies? So these are some questions you can reflect on, you can journal. We were talking about devotional containers. So following through with Saturn loves it and really rewards it. And so now is a great time to be like, you know what? I've always said I wanted to meditate. I'm going to start a meditation practice. I've always said that I want to be really more active in art making. I'm going to do it. With Saturn, nothing is fast. It is always slow. We've got 3 years. And whatever you create during this 3-year period is going to have this resounding, it's going to last for 30 years till Saturn comes back to Pisces. You're creating a structure that's going to last a long time. So, for example, a devotional container can be, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes every morning. It can be, you know what? I hate sitting meditation. It doesn't work for my brain. So I'm going to take a class on a different form of meditation. I'm going to take a class on Qigong or yoga or contemplative movement. I'm going to take a class that teaches walking meditation. I'm going to find a teacher that can support me in finding ways to create meditative spaces and facilitate deeper self-awareness and consciousness that work for my brain and body. It can be whatever it is. It just has to be some sort of container. I'm gonna spend 1 hour once a week working on my drawing, working on my music, working on my sculpture, whatever it is. With Pisces, especially like creativity and spirituality, but it can be anything else too. I'm gonna go back to AA. I'm gonna go to NA, or I'm gonna go whatever it is. I'm gonna get support because my family's addiction is really affecting me, or my addiction is affecting my family, or I'm clean right now, I'm sober, but like I know that I could use more support. I'm ready to go to the deeper level of work. Or it can be, I really want to heal this wound that I have, emotional, psychological, physical. I'm going to find a therapist. I'm going to go to a physical therapist. I'm going to start seeing an acupuncturist regularly. I'm going to budget and figure out how I can make that happen and make the time in my schedule, these kinds of things. Saturn loves tangible decisions and steps and choices that you make, and the follow through. Now, with Saturn and Pisces, the follow through might feel hard sometimes. It might get foggy. It might get confusing. Do not be hard on yourself about it. It's okay. That's just what happens. One of the shadow sides of Saturn is criticism. That's not right. That's not, oh gosh, how do I even put this? Failure is just learning. Saturn, right? We experience this judgment and criticism through Saturn, but Saturn in its highest vibrational form, right? Again, is the loving wise elder who's like, oh yeah, of course you messed that up. Like, you're human. It's okay. Now just keep trying. Or you learned that actually that didn't work for you. That teacher was weird. Or that method just didn't work. Or this was ableist and it wasn't good. Or that friend said they supported you, whatever. You learn things and then you keep trying. And that's what Saturn wants. Saturn wants your persistence to keep trying. It doesn't want you to be hard on yourself. So Saturn retrogrades. Saturn is going retrograde. I have my little list here. It's going to be retrograde 3 times during the next 3 years in Saturn and Pisces. So it's going to be retrograde June 17th to November 4th of 2023. Then June 29th to November 15th of 2024. Then July 13th to November 27th of 2025. And if you're paying attention, you notice that it's like here and then here and then here on the calendar, right? There's this staggering, and it's a beautiful way of watching Saturn move and change through time, noticing those retrograde periods. So what to do with the retrograde? The retrograde, it starts in 2 or 3 days right now from when I'm making this video. We've already entered into the pre-retrograde period. And so what I encourage you to do is reflect. Don't overthink creating structures right now. Don't overthink creating new structures in your life. Because again, you may have to do it again when Saturn comes out of retrograde in November. However, I'm not going to be like, you cannot create any structures in your life over the next 6 months. That's just ridiculous, because like, I'm going home this summer. I'm going to be at home with my family for many months. I'm going to have to create structures. That's fine. Then they're going to fall away when I leave. I just need to know that the planet of structure isn't going to be there for me, right, to support. I'm going to have to do it myself. So for me, something to be maybe reflecting on at the beginning of the Saturn retrograde period is, what structures do I need to be able to thrive this summer? And how can I create them for myself? Retrograde periods are a great time to reflect on your relationship with Saturn itself. So reflect on, how do you deal with failure? What's the story that you tell yourself when failure arises, when rejection arises? Do you tell yourself that you're bad? Oh, this is because I wasn't good enough. Oh, this is because of this or that. Do you tell yourself other people are bad? Other people don't understand me. They don't see my value. What's wrong with them? Right? That's the blame game. Do you blame yourself or others? Ideally, if we were all ascended, what we would say, and like non-corporeal beings anymore, and we were perfect, which hooray that we're not, because that's not what we're here for. We would be like, yes, I failed. What a beautiful cosmic opportunity to learn. And that's really the invitation. Saturn, we fail so that we learn. Saturn is a planet of learning. That's why it's a planet of life and time and growth and wisdom. So taking time to reflect on, what have you learned over the last year? Since the last Saturn retrograde, what have you been learning? How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with criticism? What's your inner voice like? Doing this Saturn retrograde, I really encourage you to reflect on, what do I tell myself when I fail, or when I mess up, or when I don't do everything as I hoped it would be done? And how do I respond when other people don't meet my expectations or do things as I hoped? Do I get really critical? This isn't to judge. This isn't to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad. Let me tell you, I do that. I get really hard on myself. I get really hard on others. It's just to bring in some awareness. Pisces is the planet of consciousness. This retrograde is an opportunity to reflect on your Saturn tendencies to bring them into more consciousness. This is also an opportunity to reflect on your boundaries. How do you create boundaries? Do you create boundaries in communicable ways? Do you ghost people? Do you create boundaries by calling in authority? Whatever, I don't know. How do you create boundaries? Why do boundaries matter to you? How would you like to create boundaries in the future? Again, we're asking these questions without judgment. It's just an opportunity to reflect. And with Saturn in Pisces, I feel like honestly the best question to kind of reflect on is, what do I believe is true about reality? And what do I want to believe? Pisces is really the sign of the zodiac that reminds us what ancient peoples and indigenous peoples and pretty much most spiritual traditions teach us, not religions necessarily, spiritual traditions, which is that, right, this is kind of like this dream that we're all living together. This is a great performance. This is a great, this is a big dream. Not that it's not real, right, but that we are experiencing it through our awareness, through our consciousness, and that there's this magic involved. And yeah, it's real, but also there's something else there. And that's Neptune, that's Pisces. That's something else. The more I do this kind of work, the more I see this dream-like quality. It's not that things aren't real, because they absolutely freaking are. Ooh, they are real. It's that there is no judgment to any of it. It's just things that are happening. I really believe, here comes my Saturn in Pisces, right? My incarnation of my Piscean nature, right? That that we are all that we're all just manifestations of consciousness, and consciousness is just on a journey to experience itself. And we are here to just open ourselves up to as many experiences that we can. And the key to consciousness and awareness is becoming more open to more experiences, right? That's why, like, for example, in martial arts, my dad would always tell me about this as a kid, you stand beneath a freezing cold waterfall and you learn not to tense up. And he just thought it was the coolest thing. And I was like, what? Why would anyone do that? I think about it all the time when I take cold showers now. Or I end my shower with cold, and I try to breathe into it and I try to relax. And because I really believe that pleasure is just what we're willing to experience, and pain is what we're not willing to experience yet. And Saturn, wherever Saturn is always asking us, what are you willing to experience? Whatever we judge or count as pain is what we're not willing to experience. And it's not that pain doesn't objectively exist. Oh my God. But right, it's like gosh. With Saturn and Pisces, we're being asked to remember that we can breathe into our pain and suffering and transform it into ecstasy. What? How do you even do that? Yeah, I know. We are not here because we know how to do these things. We are here because we're asking questions and because we are trying. And so with this retrograde period, you get to ask, what am I currently willing to experience? What have I noticed that I'm not willing to experience? And again, there's no judgment on that. A great way to notice if you're not willing to experience something is if it causes you incredible suffering, just so much pain. How can I breathe into that? How can I just be a little bit more present with that without judgment of myself or others, or without judgment of the experience itself, knowing that I trust myself, I trust the universe. How do I just breathe into this? How do I just be with this? Not to change, not to do anything, just to reflect and notice. Okay, I feel like this video has gotten way longer than I expected it to be. So those are some of my thoughts for Saturn and Pisces, for this coming Saturn retrograde. I maybe will make more videos about this. I don't know. Let me know if that's of interest. If there are questions that have arisen, things you want me to answer in future videos, please do. Email them to me. Please reach out. Please be like, hello, Faith, I want to know. What about this with Saturn and Pisces? Or what about this? If you are interested in understanding how this is affecting your own chart, I encourage you to reach out and schedule an appointment with an astrologer. If you want to reach out and work with me, you can do that with me or one of the very many gorgeous astrologers out there in the world. If you want to, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. That really helps me out. If you want to learn more about me and my work, you can go to faithcarroll.com. The link is below. You can sign up for my newsletter, which is where all of it happens. And you can just learn more about my practice or set up an appointment or just reach out and say hi. Yeah, I'm just checking in. I'm bringing everything back in, seeing if there's anything else that feels good to share, that feels important to share for this Saturn and Pisces. If you're a little like, wow, I don't know what to think about, what to reflect on for this Saturn retrograde period, please go check out my Saturn and Pisces embodied celestial meditation, because that might help, doing that meditation might help give you a little bit more clarity on what this retrograde period is an opportunity for you to reflect on. When we enter retrogrades, we clear out, we get rid of what's old, we release. This is an opportunity to release your patterns, release your limits, release the structures that aren't serving you, release addictions, all of these things. So beautiful, such a gift. Whatever we're releasing or reflecting on, right, we carry that with us. It's not a time, right, to start a new project. It's a time to refine your current projects. It's a time to reinvent your current projects. It's not a time to start new ones though. And that's okay, because if you are someone who is at all in tune with the cosmos and with your body isn't going to give you new projects. Capitalism is going to continue giving you new projects, and you might have to take some on. But for your more personal stuff, your body's not going to give you new projects because your body is tuned into what's happening in the stars. And if it does, it'll probably give you those projects in a context that's aligned with what's happening with the stars, because our bodies just know. It's amazing. Okay. All kinds of other things, so much to say, but this feels like a good ending for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care, everybody. Love yourself during this retrograde period. It is a time to just be like, I get to relax a little bit. I get to just rest a little bit. I get to regrow and release and take care of your bones, take care of your body, do what you need to do. And as always, trust yourself. You've got this. Okay, take care all.